Alright, team, so we're back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII. We're talking Rebirth, and today I want to do a bit of a discussion about the game itself and the potential of delays. It's something people have mentioned. I've seen this a few times on like Reddit and on Twitter within the last like week or so. And as it stands right now, we're exactly 7 weeks to the day before the game drops. So what better time to talk about this? The main concern that I've seen for people is that the game hasn't gone gold yet, which I think is a little bit fair because we're again 7 weeks from release. You would think it would already be gold. You looked at something like Final Fantasy 16 very recently, obviously. That game went gold almost like 3 months. It was like March 31st, I believe, last year that it went gold, and the game didn't come out until June 22nd, obviously. Well, we never really had anything negative come out about the development for Rebirth. In fact, it's pretty much always been positive. I just still think it's a genuine concern, obviously, because you want the game to go gold as soon as possible. That means the game's fucking done, right? It's the gold master. That means the game's complete. It's ready to be released or whatever. So I think it's fair to be a little bit concerned just because we've seen delays in the past with the remake project itself with the first game, right? It got delayed from March 3rd, 2020 to April 10th, 2020. And also in general, Square Enix, like some of their big games get delayed quite often. Look at Final Fantasy 15, which used to be Versus 13. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 took like 13 years or whatever the fuck. So it's just a fair thing to be worried about. I will say though, something that people tend to, I guess, forget about sometimes when they talk about remake being delayed is that the last year or so of that game being developed was like during COVID, right? Or at least like the last like half a year and shit. We're starting to get into like the lockdown type shit. So like that could have definitely affected it. They delayed the game for polish, is what they said back in the day, which I've never been the biggest believer of. I've always thought, my conspiracy theory, if you will, that they just wanted the game to be pushed into the next fiscal year. Obviously, their fiscal year begins April 1st, ends March 31st for the next year. So pushing it into April, be sure that the next fiscal year will be successful. Get into it because I remember every little thing about the marketing when it comes to remake and stuff like that. And obviously 2020 was, at this point, literally 4 years ago, but what we're talking about was almost 4 years ago. When it came to remake, that game went gold actually the same day that the demo dropped, March 2nd, 2020. So doing the basic math on that, that's obviously a month and 8 days, or might as well say 5 weeks, March 2nd, 2020 to April 10th, 2020. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're still 7 weeks from release to the day. So there's really 2 weeks left before they even have to announce the game going gold, and it would still line up with exactly what happened with Remake. And it's kind of hard to look at like something like 16 that went gold super early, and then here we are getting closer and closer to the release of Rebirth, and we haven't heard the game go gold yet. But I just don't think there's any concern. It's perfectly fair to be worried or concerned or whatever. I just don't think that there's going to be a delay. I just don't expect that at all. Plus, they're shooting for that February 29th release date, which is obviously very rare. It's a leap year, right? And how often can you drop a game on that date? So I don't think they're going to want to miss that release date. We get closer to the end of this month, to around that like 5 week mark. We haven't heard anything yet about the game going gold. We can kind of start to worry a bit, but even then, just kind of looking into games going gold on the old Google machine. Oftentimes games go gold like 2 to 3 weeks before release, so it could really be like halfway through February and they could announce it going gold, and we're still perfectly fine. Actually, really quickly, I wanted to add this to the video as well. I mentioned earlier that the development for Rebirth has pretty much always been positive, but actually, it's kind of only ever been positive. It goes back as far as the actual delay of Remake itself, where back then the devs were saying that even though Remake's being delayed, it's not going to affect the other installments of the games, right? So pretty much for like 4 years now, they've been saying the development for the second game, Remake Part 2, or as we know it now, FF7 Rebirth, is going perfectly fine. So there's not really a reason to expect a delay as of right now. So anytime that we had any sort of update the last couple of years and random interviews here and there about the next game, it was always positive. Development's going smoothly. It's going faster than we expected, etc., etc. And just using the remake delay as a comparison, that game got announced to be delayed like January 2020, right? A couple months before release. So I feel like if they were going to delay the game, they would have probably already announced it. Actually, one more thing I want to add to the video really quickly before we wrap it up here. With the last video, we talked about the upcoming state of play, potential of a new trailer, potential of demos being announced, revealed, whatever. People were talking about the demos probably dropping or potentially dropping on January 31st, which makes sense. That's the original Japanese release of OG FF7. I also think January 31st wouldn't be a bad date for them to announce that Rebirth is going gold because, again, it's an iconic date for the games. Technically, anything's possible, but I just want to make this video for you guys just because I've seen the discussions out there a little bit, and I just wanted to like lower the concerns for people. I just don't think that there's anything to worry about. Anyways, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search in the description below. If I'm on Twitter, -YT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.